I'm John Isaac. I come from India, in southern India, and I came to America in 1968, and I was 25 years old, and I was very adventurous, and I wanted to try my luck living in America and becoming a folk singer or a blues singer. So when I arrived in New York City, the Indian government gave me $7 for my 1-month visitor stay. So between my travel from New Delhi to London and London to New York, I spent most of the money with a few whiskeys, and I ended up landing in Kennedy Airport with my 12-string guitar and 75 cents in my pocket. And a friend said I could stay a couple of days with them. So the very next day, I went to the streets, and that was the time when all the flower children with long hair, and I fitted in fine with the hippies. I joined, I sang, and people would throw some money in my guitar case, and I'll go back with the change. I literally sang for my supper. And I got to worry about my visa and how I'll stay in New York because it was going to expire in a week. So one day, a very kind lady, I was in the Greenwich Village, and after I sang, she said, you know, I work for the United Nations, and we have a choral group, a choir called the UN Singers, and we are actually looking for a baritone voice like yours. Will you come and audition? So I told her, I will definitely come, but will you be able to get me a job or something? And she said, yes, I will try my best to get you an entry-level job. So that's what happened. And then I ended up working for the UN for 30 years. So while I joined the UN from a messenger job, I entered a photo contest and I won a grand prize. And the photo department said, would you like to try your luck in the photo department and be a darkroom technician? And that's what happened. I joined there. Then I was a darkroom technician, and I became a photojournalist. And then I was a photo editor, and I retired as the chief of the photo unit. My very second assignment was to go to Vietnam and Southeast Asia and cover the plight of the Vietnamese people who were leaving in little boats in 1979. And they were leaving the country to be free in a free country which will accept them. And I saw a young girl staring at the ocean. So when I went near, somebody told me, do you know what happened to her? While she was traveling, during her odyssey, the pirates had killed her father and her mother and looted all the money, and they raped this girl. So I just don't want to take a picture. Let me try and see if I can find a home for her. So I had met 3 Catholic nuns from California the day before. So I went and woke them up, and I brought them to the seashore where this girl was. And then I had brought some chocolates, some music. And then she smiled, and she looked at us. And the 3 nuns took her, and she lived somewhere in California. I didn't take a picture. I didn't even take her name. All I wanted to do was save her from the agony that she was going through and to find somebody that will relieve her quickly. But when I came back to New York, when we had a symposium the next year, I was talking about this girl and what I did. Many people criticized, and they said, that wasn't my job. My job was to take my picture, and there are other people who are doing this kind of job. But I felt I was a human being first, and then only whatever I did. And this is what my mother used to tell me when I was young. She said, when you get a job, you have to think about, you know, who you are, a human being, and then only your job comes in. So I am happy now that I did not take a picture. So in 1984, I was sent to Ethiopia. Ethiopia had one of the worst droughts in history, famine, and they had a dictator who ruled. So they were struggling. I was one of the first journalists to go there. And for the first time, I saw people die of starvation. So I saw a lady who had delivered a baby before she could reach the clinic, and her umbilical cord was still attached to the baby, and she was fully naked. So my first reaction was to cover her, so we did. But just before we had come there, a TV crew had seen this, so they ran up to the car to get the gear to film this lady. So when they saw that she was clothed, they asked who did this, and they said me. So the video cameraman was really upset with me. He came and he cursed me with all kinds of names, and he said I didn't have the right to do that, and I ruined his Pulitzer Prize picture. This is how I started to develop my photojournalism in a different way, and many times I never took a picture. And I'm just giving you a few examples. And in '94, I got a call from New York, and they said, all hell broke loose in Rwanda, and we want you to go to Rwanda now. So I was not prepared. I didn't even know what was going on. I just heard on the BBC what was going on there. I went to Rwanda, and I landed in the middle of ethnic cleansing between two tribes, the Hutus and the Tutsis. They were hacking each other with machetes, and people were fleeing. Refugees were all over the place. And I didn't even know where to focus, what to do. UNICEF called and they said, will you please do a story about the children who are displaced? And they call them unaccompanied children. So here I was in a children's camp, and this little boy was telling me all the stories. His name was Innocent, and he witnessed the other tribe come and hack his mother and his father with machetes. After he's saying it, I'm almost in tears, and then he looked up to me and he said, do you know something? You look just like my father, he said. So I hugged him and I said, you know something? I wish I had a son like you. So the next thing he said, will you take me back with you? So I'm trying to explain, my helicopter is waiting, and it's not that easy for me to take you. I have to go to Kigali and cover some more coverage. But all of that didn't make any sense to him. But I was really bothered, and I was about to get to the helicopter, and he came running and he said, if you ever come back to Africa, come and visit your son, he said. So when I came back and I filed my story, I really didn't know what happened to me. One day I went to work. There was just a blank. Everything was gray. I didn't even know who I was. I mean, I lost all my esteem. And my wife said every night I'm screaming in my dreams. And so I told her that I'm having violent dreams, and I tried to explain a little bit. But when this happened to me, and I'm telling you, what I'm going to say is even shameful, because I came this close to killing myself. I was struggling with this, and the UN gave me generously sick leave, and I went to some psychiatrist. I was taking some medication, and I was moping around in the house. One day, I looked out one morning, and I was having a beer on a Saturday morning, and in my neighbor's backyard, I saw this beautiful sunflower. It was almost smiling at me, you know. And I shot 36 frames, and I came home, and my wife was so thrilled. And I told my wife, tomorrow I'm going back to work, and I'm fine. And 23 years later, I'm telling you my story. So I'm really grateful to somebody up there who guided me all through. And life is really beautiful. So I also had some good moments. I only talk to you about the bad moments. I met people like Audrey Hepburn. When she became the ambassador to UNICEF, she asked the UNICEF head, Mr. Grant, she said, can you ask for John Isaac to go with me to Ethiopia in 1988? Because she had seen the coverage I'd done before. So that was a big thrill. I enjoyed her company. I traveled with her on many of her travels. And one time we were in Bangladesh, and she was pouring her heart out to the orphan children, and she was saying how tough it was for her during World War II. One little girl, a Bangladeshi girl, it got to her heart. She jumped up, broke off from the crowd, and she came and she hugged her. And they both cried. Audrey was crying, she was crying. I was right next to them. At that moment, I didn't want to take my camera and photograph because I felt it's a personal encounter, let her enjoy. Later on, some of the UNICEF people asked me, how come you didn't take that picture? Audrey Hepburn immediately corrected them, and she said, I'm so glad he didn't take that picture. Few years before, I met Mother Theresa, and this was an amazing encounter. She's just a little lady, amazing. These two ladies were bigger than life, and I'm always indebted to them because they taught me something about human dignity, because my mother also was a wise lady. She always told me, you have to protect your dignity. Only then you will know how to protect other people's dignity. So 3 ladies played a big role, and Mother Teresa, the whole day I spent, she was talking about how she wants to give dignity to the unwanted dying with AIDS. She said, John, my lap was always for there. They could sleep, lie there, and peacefully die. We're all the same. I mean, we have to respect each other. And that's what life is all about. And I want to say something also here, which is not relating to my photography story. My mother always told me, John, happiness is the most important thing for you. And happiness is something that comes from within. And it'll come sporadically. You cannot catch it and keep it. It's almost like a rainbow, she said. You will see it when you go there, it's not there. Learn to recognize when it comes, and then you let it go and recognize it when it comes back. Now I'm turning myself into another chapter, and I'm going to talk about, I switched from photojournalism to wildlife because I always was very fond of wildlife, especially the tigers in India, because I come from India and they're endangered. They're saying that in 20 years there won't be any tigers. So while I'm switching over, one day I had a strange phone call, and the voice said, "Hi, is this John?" And I said, "Yes, who is this?" "This is Michael Jackson." And I didn't know what to say. I thought one of my crazy friends is pulling my leg. So I said, "Get out of here," and I hung up. Right? So then I was thinking, and I called my wife, and I said, "I got a call from somebody's pulling your leg. You know, you have some crazy friends, you know, they're a few minutes later, the phone rang, and this time it was a deep voice, and he said, "I'm the manager of Michael Jackson. Are you John Isaac?" So I said, "Yes." "Why did you hang up the phone on him?" "Because he's sulking here. He's saying nobody has hung up the phone on him." So he decided to come to New York 3 days later to do his video with Spike Lee, and then he invited me to be his photographer and travel the history tour. The first thing he told me, "John, all I want from you, be my eyes and show me what I cannot see, because I love what you see and what you show." So what I want to share is there's a whole another side of him. Every city we went, he would tell the public relations person, find me where the hospitals are, especially where the children who are terminally ill. And I went to several hospitals, and I flew in his private jet. We went to so many different places. I was the concert photographer, but he went to every town he was there. He always talked about love. He said, I love humanity. So my mother, when I was 18 years old, she said, John, you have to love humanity. And when you say, I love you, you should say it from here. It's not just I love you, you know. So she quoted Rabindranath Tagore, who was the greatest poet from India, Nobel Prize winner for literature. Tagore wrote our national anthem, and he said, may my loving you not be a burden on you, for I freely chose to love you. You think about that. May my loving you not be a burden on you, for I freely chose to love you. And that is true love. Thank you. Thank you. So I want to end my little life story. I want to share an old 3,000-year-old Sanskrit proverb. It's anonymous. Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the realities and principles of existence. The bliss of growth, the splendor of action, the power of glory. Yesterday was just a dream. Tomorrow is only a vision. But today well lived makes every yesterday a dream of happiness and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day. Thank you. Thank you very much.